Bolivia economy minister denounced multimillion impact on the country's economy of the paralyzing actions promoted by the right wing in Santa Cruz. In the United Kingdom, Prime Minister-designate Rishi Sunak promised on Monday to bring unity and stability to the country amid this economic crisis. And in Myanmar, over 60 people were killed in an army airstrike against the Kachin ethnic minority. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Bolivia's Minister of Economy, Marcelo Montenegro, denounced that the actions of paralysis promoted by the right wing in Santa Cruz have a daily cost of $40 million for the national economy. Montenegro described the protests in Santa Cruz as an attack on the economic reactivation after the COVID-19 pandemic because it slows down economic growth and affects the economy of families, a situation that comes after a 4.1% growth in Bolivia's GDP in the second quarter of 2022. The Minister of Economy blamed the governor of Santa Cruz and the Civic Committee for paralyzing the reconstruction of the country and called them to stop these measures. The strike was called for an indefinite period after the failure of the negotiations between the administration of President Luis Arce and collective that denounced that a presumed citizen under registration causes a lower allocation of public resources and participation in the parliament for Santa Cruz. In Haiti, social and popular sectors have called for a large mobilization this Monday in rejection of a possible foreign military intervention. The organizers demand the resignation of the interim Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, and called for a transitional government that may foster a national agreement and bets on the sovereignty of the country. This comes at a time when Haiti is facing a cholera outbreak that has spread across its 10 departments, killing at least 37 people. This cholera resurgence happens amid high levels of insecurity caused by gangs that are also blocking fuel distribution, which affects the operativity of hospitals and drinking water services. On Sunday, Ecuador's National Risk Management Service reported that 3 miners have been trapped since Saturday in a subway gallery in El Oro province after a rocks and mudslide. The mine is located in the town of Zaruma, in the coastal province of El Oro, southwest and bordering Peru, one of Ecuador's gold-rich areas. The Risk Management Agency said that water and rocky materials slid to a depth of 120 meters, where the 3 people who were engaged in carpentry activities were located. Rescue workers from various institutions and mining company personnel continue with the task to rescue the trapped people. Mirza Aristeguieta, the governor of El Oro, said the search task will be intensified as long as the conditions inside the mine allow it. According to local authorities, the Zaruma area has sinkholes caused by tunnels opened by illegal miners who operate alongside regulated miners. In Brazil, 6 days ahead of the presidential runoff, the hopeful for the Workers' Party's Luis Inácio da Silva rejected the hate speech promoted by Bolsonaro followers. The leader of the Brazilian Workers' Party described as inappropriate and aggressive the behavior of former Bolsonaro's deputy for the state of Rio de Janeiro, Roberto Jefferson, who offended Minister Carmen Lucia Antunes and resisted his arrest, ordered by the Minister of the Supreme Federal Court, Alexandre de Moraes. The incident prompted Lula da Silva to say that throughout the many previously held elections in Brazil, there had never occurred such offensive incidents. Da Silva blamed his adversary, incumbent President Jair Bolsonaro, for having turned a sector of the Brazilian society into an angry, hateful, lying mass and for the constant spreading of fake news. On Sunday, Category 3 Hurricane Rosalyn, now downgraded to tropical storm, left 3 people dead in the Mexican state of Nayarit on the country's Pacific coast. The storm also caused loss of infrastructure damage. The Nayarit Education Board has canceled all learning activities Monday through Tuesday to guarantee the safety of students, teachers, and all other sector employees. Meanwhile, in the state of Jalisco, civil protection and firefighting authorities reported the storm caused material damage but no fatalities. In recent hours, Rosalind degraded to a tropical storm. Still, authorities urge people to stay at places that may offer protection from floods, landslides, and sea surges. At least one person died and 2 are missing after flash floods affected 14 neighborhoods in the municipality of Bosconia in the Colombian department of Cesar. According to government officials, the deceased is a boy between 5 and 7 years old who was swept away by the current and drowned. The 2 missing are a child and an adult from the San Martin and San Juan Bosco neighborhoods. Meanwhile, the mayor of Bosconia, Adolfo Villar Estrada, said flood water reached up to 1.5 meters deep. He declared a state of emergency, explaining that the municipality's response capacity was insufficient. The recent floods has affected around 4,500 households. On Monday, the police in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, in central U.S. reported the death of 3 people, including the shooter, in a gun incident at a high school. According to the police report, the incident took place in the morning hours at the St. Louis School of Visual and Performing Arts. The identities of the victims were not disclosed. However, it was stated that among the 3 dead were a woman, a teenager, and the shooter, described as a young man in his 20s. Police asked the public to stay away from the area while elements of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives deployed to the scene conducted studies. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok. We're at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. On Monday, former Chancellor Rishi Sunak became the UK's first British Asian new Prime Minister after Penny Mordaunt and former Prime Minister Boris Johnson dropped out of the race minutes before the candidacy deadline was reached. Sir Graham Brady, the 1922 committee head, confirmed in a short statement that Sunak became the new leader. Now UK Prime Minister, Sunak was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, top ministerial position for the UK's finance affairs, in Boris Johnson's cabinet in 2020. The new Prime Minister was born in Southampton to Indian parents who came to the UK from East Africa. In his time as the Finance Minister during the COVID-19 pandemic, Sunak devised and implemented a wide-ranging economic support program for the country that ran into the hundreds of billions of pounds, supporting both employers and employees with generous government funding. The Tory leadership contest was triggered after outgoing Prime Minister Liz Truss's resignation last Thursday after only 6 weeks in the top government office following a tumultuous run and turmoil in the economy due to her mini-budget. United Kingdom's incoming Prime Minister Rishi Sunak vowed to bring stability and unity at a time of economic crisis after he was named the Conservative Party's new leader.
We now need stability and unity, and I will make it my utmost priority to bring our party and our country together, because that is the only way we will overcome the challenges we face and build a better, more prosperous future for our children and our grandchildren.
In the United Kingdom, former Finance Minister Rishi Sunak was elected as the new Prime Minister in the middle of the crisis that drove his predecessor Liz Truss out of power. Let's review the chronology of events that led to this appointment.
Following Boris Johnson's resignation as Prime Minister on September the 6th, an election process initiated in the Conservative Party which led Liz Truss to take office. Truss attempted to establish an unprecedented package of economic measures, which roughly consisted of a substantial tax cut to boost economic growth amidst an unfavorable context. The economic experiment did not have the confidence of establishment and her own party colleagues. The markets and the institutions forced her to reverse reverse the process, which made her the prime minister with the shortest period in office that only lasted 44 days. Faced with the prospect of a new election, the opposition, represented by the Labour Party, advocated the opinion of bringing forward the general elections in 2024 with the aim of taking advantage of a crisis to increase its share of seats in parliament. This idea was finally discarded. For the replacement of Truss, an accelerated process was arranged with a deadline of October 28th, in which the aspirants had to gather at least 100 support among the 357 members of the parliament. The next step was the selection of 2 finalists to be submitted to the consultation of more than 170,000 members of the Conservative Party, but this step was not necessary given that the contender, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, withdrew his aspiration because he did not have the necessary support to govern, even though he obtained 100 votes to remain in the race for the position. As the Conservative Party has a majority in Parliament, its leader automatically becomes the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Russia will raise the issue of Ukraine's preparation of a dirty bomb provocation in international forums, including the United Nations. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made the announcement on Monday at a news conference following talks with Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Hussein Ibrahim Taha. The Russian top diplomat stressed that Moscow had specific information about Ukrainian scientific institutions that possessed technologies capable of creating a dirty bomb. Lavrov also stressed that the Russian government had double-checked the information through the appropriate channels.
Of course, we see the media reaction of the West. It does not surprise us. It goes in line with the reckless support to its protege Zelensky, providing him with indulgence for any Russophobic actions not only in words but in the bombardment of civilian targets, civilian populations.
Speaking at a press conference on COVID-19, the World Health Organization Europe Regional Director Hans Kluge warned about an early spike in seasonal influenza cases and urged everyone to get their influenza and COVID-19 booster vaccines.
But this is not a time to relax. In the past month, we have also seen an early spike in seasonal influenza cases, leading now to increased positivity in patients hospitalized with severe acute respiratory infections. With COVID-19 and seasonal influenza co-circulating, the health of vulnerable people, including the elderly, the immunocompromised, pregnant women and newborns, is at greater risk.
More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Myanmar, some 60 people were killed in an airstrike by the Burmese army against the Kachin ethnic minority during a celebration of the anniversary of the Kachin Independence Organization. According to the Kachin Artists Association, between 300 and 500 people attended the event that took place in a base used by the Independence Army, located in a village in the municipality of Hakkant in the north of the country. This organization detailed that the event included a concert, so among the fatalities were musicians, civilians, jade mining business owners, officials, and soldiers. The attack came 3 days before Southeast Asian foreign ministers are due to hold a special meeting in Indonesia to discuss the rising violence in the country. UN High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi called for a rapid scale-up of humanitarian assistance to help avert the deteriorating humanitarian situation in drought-hit Somalia. In the African nation, a catastrophic drought has pushed communities to the brink of famine. Over 4.3 million people are acutely food insecure across the country as the Horn of Africa region faces its worst drought in 40 years. Thousands of people have recently been forced to flee their homes in search of food and water for their families and livestock. According to the UNHCR-led Protection and Return Monitoring Network, the number of people internally displaced nears 1 million in 2022, with another nearly 500,000 displaced due to conflict and insecurity. Most of the internally displaced live in difficult conditions with very low chances of returning home.
There are a few projects around Somalia that UNHCR is also participating in Kismayo, here and in other places, and I think these are good models, not so difficult to replicate, relatively cost-effective, so we need to invest more with the help not only of humanitarian agencies but of development organizations, in financial institutions, moving forward to really try to give Somalia and the people of Somalia a more hopeful future.
The special representative of the Secretary General for Libya, Abdoulaye Bathily, stated that the human rights situation in the country remains worrying. At the same time, he called for working for national reconciliation among citizens.
In response to the near unanimous condemnation across the spectrum of the presence of mercenaries, foreign fighters and foreign forces in Libya, and the incessant foreign interference in the country's affairs, I stressed to all my interlocutors that the solution to the crisis must come from inside Libya, on the basis of the will of the Libyan people.
At least 15 people were confirmed to have contracted the deadly Ebola virus in the Ugandan capital Kampala, according to the country's Ministry of Health. Kampala becomes the 6th district to confirm the presence of the virus after Mubende, Kasanda, Kiagekwa, Punjangabu, and Kagadi, a worrisome increase in infections just over a month after an outbreak was declared in a remote part of the East African country. The announcement provoked mixed reactions amongst the Ugandan business community that is recovering from a prolonged COVID pandemic lockdown. Uganda has in the past been praised for its handling of epidemics and pandemics. A top World Health Organization official in Africa said last week that the outbreak was rapidly evolving, describing a challenging situation for health workers. There is no proven vaccine for the Sudan strain of Ebola that's circulating in Uganda. In Cuba, Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez rejected the imposition of sanctions by the United States against Iran and the attempts to subvert the internal order of the Persian nation. The foreign minister assured that the Caribbean nation maintains its rejection of the interference of the U.S. and the manipulation of human rights for political purposes. Likewise, senior Iranian officials warned the U.S. and Israel that they will respond to any threat or invasion attempt that intends to halt the progress of the country. In this sense, the commander-in-chief of the army, Sayed Abdolrahim Musavi, denounced that Washington, Tel Aviv, and their allies seek the application of a hybrid war against Iran. Iranian security forces arrested 10 members of an espionage and terrorist network affiliated with Mossad, the National Intelligence Agency of Israel. According to Fars News Agency, all 10 members of the network were identified and arrested in Iran's northwestern province of West Azerbaijan. The agency noted that the terrorist network had been in contact with several Mossad intelligence officers. The members of the terrorist group, motivated by Israel intelligence agencies' numerous pledges like financial gains, received rigorous training from Mossad officers and were collecting information about individuals cooperating with the Iranian security and intelligence. They extracted information from their victims through abduction, various threats, and violent assault and battery. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.